So first at the start, after this cutscene skip, I have to select Milla to play the story through Milla's perspective. Now, Milla starts out the game considerably overpowered.
Onward.
She has the power of the 4 great spirits, one of which you are going to see me use to basically destroy the first few fights. Alright, so we have our first fight coming up right here, and it should take less than 3 seconds. If I'm lucky, I can kill it in 1 hit, but it's more likely I will get it in 2. Also, there are a few tutorials I have to skip. That was the first one. So that was Undine you just saw, which destroyed the 2 enemies. Also, what you just saw me pick up is a loot bag. Those bags contain materials, which I'm going to need in order to upgrade shops later. As this game has a unique shop system where the shops are basically universal. It's not like most JRPGs where every time you go to a new shop, they have a new set of items and equipment to buy. Here, each shop has in this game, each shop has a level that you have to improve either by purchasing items, donating money, or donating materials like the ones I got in that loot bag. And ideally, I want to get the weapon shop to level 7 before the first major boss. I say major boss because this is technically a boss, but not much of a boss, because as you saw, I was able to instantly kill that boss. And now we meet the other protagonist, Jude. So regardless of which character you pick, you will get both characters in your party for the majority of the game. But choosing Milla instead of Jude does change a few things. Also, I got another tutorial skip here. Alright, so what you just saw me do was I used the Lilium Orb, which is Tales of Xillia's method of stat growth and ability improvement. It's kind of like the Sphere Grid in Final Fantasy X, where when characters level up, they gain something called GP, which can be used to activate nodes on the Lilium Orb. Each node will upgrade a certain stat for the character, and when you complete a square, or quadrilateral rather, of nodes, you will learn, that character will learn either an art or a skill, whatever art or skill is inside the quadrilateral of nodes. So the game kind of gives you the ability to choose your own destiny and choose what stats you want to improve and what abilities you want to learn. There are going to be a few times in the game when I'm going to manually do the Lilium Orb, but later in the game, I'm mainly just going to use the Auto Orb function to automatically develop the orb for characters when I get much more GP. And ooh, I just got a crit. So what happened in those cutscenes I just skipped is Milla basically lost all her powers, and now she's nerfed. Which means since I don't have the 4 great spirits to use anymore, now I have to take advantage of her other unique ability, which is the Spirit Shift, which is a short animation version of an art. Like, so what you saw me do in that fight was Wind Lance, which is a short animation version of Windblade. There are going to be a few times in the run when I'm going to be using Spirit Shift, mainly in fights where I have to control Milla. Although, for the next boss, I'm going to switch control to Jude. Also, in these cutscenes I'm skipping, we meet our next party member, Alvin, who we never control in the run. In fact, we don't really use him much after the second boss. However, he does have a somewhat useful link ability, which I will get into shortly. So, Tales of Xillia has something called the link combat system, where two party members can link with each other and perform something called link darts. They also share stat buffs and certain skills. And also, if you are linked with a party member, that party member can use a special link ability. And this battle is basically the tutorial for link combat.
Let's finish this quickly. Okay. Oh. Getting predictable there.
So what you'll notice that Jude and Milla both have like this blue glowing border, and that means that they are linked up together.
Right there with you, buddy.
So since Jude and Milla are linked, they can now perform link darts, which you didn't see me use in that fight, but you will see me use in the next fight, where we are introduced to something called Overlimit. Overlimit is when your characters can use an unlimited amount of link darts for the duration of Overlimit. Basically, there is a gauge on the left side of the battle screen that fills up as you perform link actions and do link darts. At different thresholds, you will be able to use a link dart, but once the gauge is full, you can go into Overlimit. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back for that. So basically, you go into Overlimit, and then when you're in Overlimit, there is no limit to how many link darts you can do until the gauge depletes. Also, when you're in Overlimit, you can chain arts together. You don't have to continuously activate link darts using the required art, because to actually use a link dart, you have to use a specific art. Like, so here's a chain in Overlimit. Whoops.
You have big hands.
Okay, I didn't quite get it there, but basically, if you activate a different link dart after a link dart in Overlimit, you perform something called a link chain, where you will instantly do that next link dart. However, you can't do the same art more than once in a single chain. You can also switch your link partner in the middle of the chain and do link darts with multiple characters, or multiple pairs of characters, rather. Alright. Another thing you're noticing is I'm picking up a lot of shiny points and loot bags, because, as I mentioned earlier, I want to get the weapon shop to level 7 for the first boss, because that's going to give Jude a considerable weapon upgrade. And Jude is the main damage dealer for most of the fights in the first hour. After the first hour, we'll be using a much stronger party member who you will meet later. So what we just did was basically a tutorial for something called sub-events, which is not something that we really do in the speedrun. Although we are going to do a few of them to get a few items that will really help in the speedrun, but they're mainly like the form of side quests in Xillia, and that's a required one just to act as a tutorial for it. So now that Milla has lost power of the four great spirits in the story, we're trying to get her powers back, because she's on a mission to destroy something called the Lance of Kresnik, which is a Spyrix weapon, and Spyrix weapons in the world of Xillia kill spirits. Milla is actually the Lord of Spirits, Maxwell, or so she says, and so it's her job to protect spirits as well as humans, and thus she is trying to destroy the weapon, but the weapon has captured the four great spirits, which she needs to destroy it. And so we're on our way to Milla's hometown to try and get the spirits back so she can destroy the weapon. And on the way, I'm going to be picking up more loot. The loot, by the way, is basically RNG. Like, whether or not bags of loot and shiny points appear in certain spots, and what they contain is completely random, and is often a heavy reset point for PB attempts if I don't get a lot of good loot and can't get the shop to level 7. It's also possible you can get jet black feathers from loot bags or shiny points, which are completely useless to the speedrun, and gold, which are a bit more useful since you can get some more items, but not what we need. And what I skipped there was a tutorial for ivory treasures, which is another unique thing in Xillia, where there are these purple treasures hidden around the world, and they usually contain very good items if you pick them up, and we are going to be picking up a few of them. One we'll be getting very shortly, which contains 2,000 gold, which I definitely need to buy all my weapon upgrades, as well as the items I need for the first few bosses. Because in this speedrun, we don't actually fight any encounters that aren't forced. Ideally, we'd like to avoid all not random encounters in this game. They're not random because you see the enemies on the field, but we would rather just dodge them because we don't need them for experience. Although, sometimes the enemies can kind of troll you on maps, and some enemies, like the horses I'm about to come across, move considerably fast and have pretty big hitboxes. Sorry, I had to mute my mic for a second. So here we're coming up on the first shop, so hopefully I get the weapon shop to level 7. Alright, looks like I did get level 7 on the weapon shop. If I had not gotten level 7, I would have just worked with Jude's second best weapon, which is not ideal, but for a marathon is okay. Because you can still finish the run, it's just that the first hour of fights is going to be slower. But I did get Jude's Fist Guard. And now we're coming up on the first real boss of the game. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be casting fireballs with Milla, since this boss is weak to fire. And we're going to be doing an uppercut attack with Jude, while Alvin is going to link with Jude and perform guard breaks, because that is Alvin's special link ability. And when we have the opportunity to use link darts, we're going to be performing aerial fire, a fire elemental link dart. And this battle actually gives you a tutorial for overlimit, and as a result, we start with a near full overlimit gauge, which is very convenient. Obviously, we have to skip the tutorial, but we can take advantage of the full gauge. It's probably the worst attack he can do, where he jumps up in the air. He has another dangerous attack, the laser thing, but you can get behind him using Soaring Vortex. You don't necessarily have to guard it. That was actually a really good fight.
And that's how we do it.
I didn't think that was possible.
We should practice chaining our attacks for the future.
I just keep...
So now that we've defeated that crab monster, we are now able to go to Milla's hometown. And Milla is going to treat us like her servants and ask us to gather 4 magical stones that she apparently needs to get her 4 great spirits back. Or at least she thinks she can get them back using the stones. So we're going to go gather around some stones or gather some stones and bring them to the shrine.
That mountain beyond the village sure is something.
That's the Neokara Holomount. It's a special land where 4 spirit climbs meet. Come.
Here we go. This must be one of the...
Correct. We need 3 more just like that.
There we go. All 4 temporal stones.
I appreciate your efforts. Let's bring them to the shrine beyond the village.
These butterflies have the worst hitboxes. Like, you can get into an encounter without actually touching them if you're close enough to them. Good news is they're not that fast. Not like some of the other enemies, like the one that just caught me off guard because I couldn't see it while gathering that Ifrid treasure that I needed for money. So, turns out gathering the stones didn't work. Milla still doesn't have her powers back. So now we actually have to just go find the Lance of Kresnik and get the 4 Great Spirits. But the only way we can do that is by heading back to Fenmont, and because we invaded the lab at the beginning of the game, Jude and Milla are now wanted criminals. So it's going to be pretty hard sneaking back into that lab. Not that much going on here. There's a bit of downtime, but we are, in about 10 minutes, there's going to be another boss who is one of, if not the hardest bosses in the whole run. So, now we have to go back to that town we were in, and there we're going to get our next party member, Elise. She is the... I shouldn't say... Hold on. She is the primary healer of this game. There is another healer we're going to get later, but Elise is the game's best healer. However, she can also do some good damage with dark elemental arts, which is primarily how we're going to be using her during the run. But that's not until later. For now, she's going to be very helpful in the next boss fight. She has a very good Link partner ability called Tipo Drain, with a very cute catchphrase, but also it has the ability to absorb HP and TP from an enemy and heal Elise and her Link partner. It also can fill up your Link gauge, and we're going to be primarily using Tipo Drains to fill up the Link gauge in order to get Link Darts and Overlimit for the boss. Whoops. Also, you may be noticing that I'm just teleporting places now. What I got was the world map, which in this game allows you to instantly warp to any location you've been to. I mentioned before how this game has sub-events. Well, one of the few sub-events I am going to be doing is something called the Tipo's Family sub-event, where there's 3 cutscenes, all of which we're going to skip, but after the 3rd cutscene skip, we're going to get an item called the Echor, which is a very good material. It's worth a lot of shop points, and we're going to be using that to increase the shop level of the food vendor, which is the primary, which even more so than the weapon shop, is the primary shop we're going to be upgrading throughout the run. Food is very good in Tales of Xillia. Works a bit different than in other Tales games, where food is basically sold in packs. Instead of having to buy the different recipes and cook them, you buy a pack of food and use it from the menu, and then the food works for a certain number of battles. And the food we're going to be using is food that
You seem to know a lot about this area.
multiplies our experience that we gain. So what you saw me get from that chest was a soda rice, which I think increases experience by 30% for 5 battles. Eventually we're going to get the beef bowl, which increases it by 60%. And then eventually the spicy chicken roll, which literally doubles our experience, which is how we're going to level up our party without fighting any encounters. But in this cutscene, or rather this battle, this scripted fight, Elise is going to join our party.
Stay back, it's dangerous.
But wait, hold on. I can help.
After this fight, I have a major menu, so I'm going to be a bit quieter while I do it to make sure I don't mess it up.
Elise?
That was exhausting.
Just keep.
Is there a reason? Do I have to do like 2 of them? I thought I... Oops.
I think we can squeeze through here.
Better make sure none of us get our clothes stuck.
This is a pretty linear area. Bit harder to avoid encounters here because you don't have as much room to move in. And there are also these poison mushrooms, which if you step on them, actually damage your party. And we really don't want to take damage before the next boss. That was pretty unlucky.
If we must. Retreat!
Not sure how I would have been able to avoid that. Right now, if I get encounters, they lose a lot of time because we're under-leveled. So the escape gauge fills up very slowly. And also, it's possible to get back attacked, in which case the enemies surround you. And if you're not directly facing them, the game counts as a back attack when you get the encounter. However, eventually I'm going to get a few skills that will prevent back attacks and make escapes faster. And now we got really tough boss.
You need to come with me.
No! I don't want to.
Not yet.
Yeah, that's a game over.
Oh no! I'm so sorry, everyone.
Alvin just kept on eating my life bottles.
You need to come with me.
No! I don't want to.
Listen to me.
Well, you're one to talk.
Not yet.
I'm gonna have to take another death here. Jude really needs the experience. This boss is not cooperating.
I'm okay. Oh no! I'm so sorry, everyone.
You need to come with
Been close a few times.
I don't want to.
Yes, how unfortunate.
Girls don't like pesky guys. Ain't that right?
Well, you're not much better.
Ouch. Keep that up, I'll sew your mouth up.
I hope.
Yeah, so that's probably the big gatekeeper of this run. But I'd say a lot of people who attempt to speedrun Tales of Xillia quit after they get up to the Jow fight. Okay, I gotta... Actually wasn't sure if I was gonna have enough life bottles, but since I game overed those few times when I used so many, I actually had 3 left. But yeah. Once I lost too many life bottles, I pretty much had to take game overs because I was all out and I really needed my party members to get experience. Except for Alvin. He actually doesn't need experience anymore because we're not going to be using him for the rest of the run. But now we're going to get the most OP character in the game, Rowan, who has the most OP ability in the game, which is Fireball. Each character has their own special attribute that they can use in combat, and Rowan's special ability in combat is art tuning, which allows him to amplify arts in certain ways. And with Fireball, he can actually cast 4 fireballs in a row for the cost of 1. Also, we play the game on semi-auto, which means every time Rowan casts Fireball, he will always position himself directly at the target to make sure that, or to try and make sure that the fireballs hit the target, although sometimes the targets can still move out of the way. So now I have the last tutorial skip of the game. And in this fight, you're going to see just exactly what I can do with Fireball. Well, you'll be seeing it a lot throughout the run. So you'll notice Rowan is able to cast 4 fireballs for the cost of 1. And also, you'll notice what I'm doing is I'm guard canceling just before the 4th fireball comes out to allow him to start casting the next fireball even faster.
Good job, Rowan. Here's your reward.
So now here I'm finishing up that Tipo side quest. So now that I have Rowan in the party, my main method of damage is going to be Fireball. Fireball also has the ability to inflict burn status, which is mega OP in this game. Any enemy, including bosses, is vulnerable to burn. And burn in this game depletes a percentage of a target's max HP pretty rapidly for the duration of the status. It's even effective against enemies that are resistant to fire. Like, there's a boss I'm going to be fighting later on who is, or a few bosses actually, who are supposed to be resistant to fire. Oops. Accidentally pressed the PlayStation button there. This is one of the harder areas to navigate because you have to climb cliffs and vines and jump off of cliffs. And one problem with that is that in this game, in order to climb up something or jump up off something, your character model has to be directly facing what you want to climb. Otherwise, the game won't give you the option to do so. And that gives the enemies enough time to back attack you. Still have to collect a few materials because I need to upgrade the food shop after this next boss. This next boss can also be a pain.
Pretty hard going, huh? You doing okay there?
Even though we have Fireball, the only method we have of trying to stun lock him so that the boss can be targeted by Fireball. Okay. The only method we have to stun lock him is with Milla's Splash. We're gonna get another ability for Elise that will help stun lock later bosses, but for now all we have is Splash.
I sense a strong amount of spiritual energy emanating from it.
Was the main objective creating this thing?
Something so. I think I know.
You can analyze it after the battle.
Ooh, it got a burn. Really nice fight.
That was quite the nuisance.
But it sure was pretty.
I don't believe it evolved naturally. Then that would mean... Yes,
Just keeps.
So what's going to happen in the story now is Milla's actually going to get separated from Jude and the rest. Well, actually, Milla and Elise are going to be separated from Jude, Alvin, and Rowan. Now, if you were playing Jude's story, you would control Jude and his party and invade the Gandala fortress. But since I'm playing as Milla, we are actually imprisoned or going to be imprisoned in Fort Gandala and have to escape. So I'm gonna have to do 2 forced fights with just Milla. Those 2 forced fights, however, give a lot of experience. But if you were playing Jude's story, Jude would not get as much experience in his forced fights, and thus you would end up considerably underleveled for a few bosses after Fort Gandala. That's another reason why Milla is the preferred category of this game. It's not just because it's a faster run, it's because it's an easier run. Here we have a scripted fight. So I've got a pretty big shop menu here coming up. And then I got 2 fights where I have to kill them with just Milla using a combo. Okay, whatever. So for these next two fights, I'm going to be using a combo where I do 3 attacks with Milla, then a flare bomb, and then
Where are you?
a
What do I do without
rock
you?
trine. Ideally, I'd like to stun lock them in the combo, but there is a chance they can guard.
Let us move on.
That went pretty well. So I got one other guard fight to go. Milla actually gets 12,000 experience from each fight. And the way experience works is in this game is that if characters are not in your party, they gain whatever experience the party members that are in your party gain. So right now, Jude is gaining all the experience that Milla is getting, despite not being in the party. And I got a guard.
Let us move onward.
Even with the guard, it was still a pretty good fight. Alright, so if it wasn't bad enough that Milla lost the power of the 4 great spirits, now she's so insane to go beyond a barrier that is electrically enforced that now Milla is going to lose the ability to use her legs. And this is the part of Milla's story where the game just forces you to play as Jude. Even though you never really got a tutorial on how to use him, the game just forces you to play as Jude in Milla's story because Milla is now a paraplegic. Now, what Jude's main ability in combat is, Jude can use the snap pivot ability, which if you do a backstep just when an enemy is trying to attack him, he can get behind the enemy, which you may have seen me do in a few earlier bosses, but it's going to become super important for this next fight, which is a 1v1 battle against the worst character in the game, Ivor.
Orb is coming along nicely.
She always knows exactly what to
Not this next fight coming up. This next fight is a free fight against some random enemy, but the next boss fight can be kind of troublesome for players casually, especially if they're playing Milla's story and never used Jude before. But you may have noticed in the Jiao fight, I was doing a up attack and soaring vortex combo to try and stun lock Jiao. Well, now I'm going to try and do that against Ivor. And unlike, well, even more so than Jiao, I should say, there's really no room for error on that combo. Because Ivor is super fast, and if he gets you into a combo, probably dead. The fight is even harder if you're playing Jude's story, because Jude is lower level.
Are your legs okay? If they start to hurt, just say so.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I made the right choice with my Lilium orb.
How very odd. When you carry me on your back like this, I can't help but remember flying with Syl.
Alright, I gotta focus now.
How dare you allow this to happen? Shut up! I don't need to hear your excuses. I tried. I said shut up! It's time for you to pay for your sins, you bastard! Focus! Steal! Focus! Focus! Great! Now! Steal! Now!
That was a pretty good fight. I've seen a few runners do a more dangerous strat once Jude runs out of TP, where they just try to kill whoops. Paused a little too quickly. Where they try to kill Ivor with physical attacks and just use Soaring Vortex from the TP that he gains from it, but you have to be really good at using Soaring Vortex. I'm sorry, you have to be really good at using Snap Pivot to dodge Ivor when he gets his attacks off. It's possible to predict when bosses will attack because this game has something called Iron Stance, where you may have noticed bosses occasionally will have this blue exclamation mark appear on their head. It means they're just going to break out of your combo and attack you. So, knowing about the Iron Stance mechanic, it's possible to know when Ivor's going to attack and then just dodge him. But and you still have to know when to dodge the Iron Stance, even doing the strat I did, but what I did was definitely safer.
They say that back during the mining...
So now we're coming up on the Fulgana Mine, another very linear dungeon, where it's pretty hard to avoid encounters, because there are these tunnels you have to go through, and sometimes enemies can spawn in those tunnels. Also, the dungeon is home to probably one of the few mini-games this game has, and it's a very bad one. Basically, you just have to press X as fast as you can to break the rocks. Yeah, so you just have to mash X here to break these. If you're really good at mashing, you can get it in 2 cycles. You'll always get in at least 3, though. Barely avoided that.
An earthquake?
And coming up, we have the most RNG dependent boss of the run, in my opinion. Because, first of all, there are two parts to this boss. First, you fight him with Jude and the party member we just got, Leia. And then, Milla regains the use of her legs, and you get her in your party, and you fight the boss again. And the boss on the second phase has more HP. This boss likes to troll you by burrowing into the ground and just moving around the field, and when he does that, the boss becomes invulnerable. You cannot do any damage, and if he wants to, he can do it multiple times in a row. He's also got some pretty nasty attacks. And the fight is even worse if you're doing Jude's story. Because your party is much more underleveled. Alright, that's the last rock.
What's causing these earthquakes?
Nice, I got through there without an encounter.
Let's just keep moving.
So basically, I'm going to try and use storing vortex to keep this boss knocked down.
Jeez, why is this thing so darn big?
It must be using the spirit fossil as a source of energy. I can't think of any other explanation.
Let's just focus on beating it.
Focus. Let's do this.
Got it. Right on point. Get him.
Focus. Steal. Focus. Focus. Is fighting the only...
So I'm going to try and fill up my
All right.
overlimit gauge to get a link chain on the boss in this phase. But I need to get some good link darts in, which means the boss has to cooperate. I can use steel to knock him back up, and have Leia use soaring vortex to knock him down. But this is what I'm talking about. He can just troll like this. He can do this multiple times in a row, and he's invulnerable when he does this. Here he goes again. And he can also do this spin attack when going underground. Pretty dangerous if you're not guarding.
Tag team.
That's one.
Got it. Right on point.
Focus.
Got it.
Steal. Focus. 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 Let's do this.
Considering I didn't get overload, that was not such a bad fight. 149 is okay, actually.
Excellent.
And now we have just some cutscenes. Milla has fully regained the use of her legs, and now we get the entire party back together. So you're going to see from this point forward, the main party I'm going to use is Rowan, Milla, Leia, and Elise. Rowan obviously is going to be the big damage dealer with Fireball.
Cooked meals.
Milla and Elise are going to try and stunlock enemies. Milla with her splash spell, which you've seen me use, and Elise with a new spell she now has called Negative Gate, which is a dark ability that can draw in enemies and also stunlock them. And then what Leia's going to do is she's going to use something called Sharpness, which will increase the DPS for each character. And you're going to see that combo for the first time on the next boss. This is one of the few times I'm actually going to manually do an orb because I want to boost Rowan's intelligence stat, since that increases the damage he does with Fireball and also increases the likelihood I get burn on enemies. But what you're noticing is that now I'm basically just using Auto Orb to develop the orbs of my characters. Okay. That was actually an awkward load there. I was worried that the game was going to crash. That was an awkward exit from the menu.
All right, another.
Seemed like the game stuttered a bit.
Kutum keeps the area cloaked in a perpetual golden sunset.
Oh, that sounds so romantic. Yay! One step closer to adulthood! Tipo! Don't say that so loud. You're embarrassing me.
When I see a sunset like this, I can't help but think of home.
Now this next boss, pretty consistent. However, he can knock down party members, and sometimes he can go underground. But he's not as bad as some of the bosses you've seen me fight. Like, that's probably the worst thing he can do, is knock down a party member. Nice fight.
We finally stopped it.
That was too close!
What caused this? I did not expect it to be that active.
That wasn't...
Are we really gonna ride a wyvern? They sound really scary.
Now we arrive in Jondu, home to the game's Coliseum. So, I'm going to have 3, or actually 4 forced fights. There's 1 forced fight, then there's some cutscenes, and then there's 3 forced fights in a row. And then we have a boss, which is kind of annoying. It's against 3 Spyrex warriors who can just instantly kill a party member by using flamethrowers. They can also use items in battle, which
Look at those giant
causes like a stall for like a few seconds, which slows things down and also heals them, obviously. Not only that, but we don't get Elise for that fight, we get Jude instead. And Jude has a habit of getting himself knocked out, because the only way Jude can do damage is up front. Can't really do range damage. And so it's easier for Jude to get killed. But first I've got some other fights to do. And you're going to see me use the other fairly useful art Rowan has, which is Windlance. Windlance has its own art tuning attribute, and that is when Rowan casts Windlance, you can throw an additional lance that can hit multiple enemies. So Windlance is something I'm going to be using in battles where there are multiple targets. Ideally to like try and kill them in one full swoop.
impressive display of skill.
Anything for a lovely lady such as yourself.
An impressive display of flattery as well.
All these statues seem to be of great warriors from eras past.
So when I get super strong, you think they'll make a statue of me too?
Now, this game has a habit of just randomly switching your party during different story triggers. And for some reason, Alvin gets swapped into your main party after these cutscenes, so I actually have to do an extra menu to swap him out.
Don't mess with me! Good job, Tipo! You too!
Just keeps.
Are you ready? Victory. Well done, everyone.
So this is a...
Don't overdo it, okay?
An obvious outcome.
Yes, I won't let.
So what's happening now in the story is that turns out our friend Alvin has been secretly giving away information to Exodus, which is the evil organization controlling the Lance of Kresnik, the weapon he was trying to destroy. And so now, as Milla, we're going to confront Alvin about this. And Alvin's gonna try and lie about it, claim that he's just been doing odd jobs for them in exchange for keeping his mother safe. But really, Alvin's just spying on us.
Even
Alright, so here's that fairly dangerous fight I mentioned earlier. Okay.
They look quite formidable.
Ooh, Jude got knocked down pretty quickly. This is what I'm talking about. They can just instantly just kill party members. Ouch. Gotta burn. We have to buy more items after this. If we even survive. Doesn't look like it. Yeah. She just got killed too quickly. Alright, we got one of them down.
It's over.
Impressive. Yeah, you were amazing.
Of course. This is my mission.
Yeah, so in that first attempt, Jude just kept on getting knocked down, and other party members were taking damage. So since we kept reviving party members, we had no opportunity to heal. So we couldn't even get a single Spyrox warrior killed. So now Exodus has kidnapped Teakbo, and Alvin and Elise have gone after them. So we're now going to try and find Alvin and Elise in the Royal Hunting Grounds. Along the way, I'm going to be picking up some materials. And I'm also going to have to stop by at the shop, buy more items, because of how badly that fight went. Or at least I'm going to check. Since I game overed, I might actually not need anything.
Let us take care to be the hunters, not the prey.
Sounds good to me.
I think we did lose at least a few life bottles. So I want to get the food vendor to level 24 when I get to Cambalar. Because that's going to unlock the spicy chicken roll, which is the best food item you can get, as it doubles the experience you get from battles. It's actually pretty bad if you get an encounter here because you don't have Elise in the party. Elise has the back support and chicken run skills at this point. Back support prevents back attacks, and chicken run allows you to escape from battles quicker. So if you get an encounter before getting Elise back, the encounter is really slow, and if it's a back attack, the enemies will surround you.
Be careful. This place is crumbling down all around us.
It's as if no human has set foot in here for years.
So, now we're on our way to Canbalar to speak with the King Gaius, because we need the King's permission in order to use the Wyverns in Jondu to cross Feasible Marsh in order to get back to Fenmont. Also, this game has holes like these with hidden treasures inside.
Dark spaces always get me a little spooked.
That's the only one you'll see me crawling into. So coming up, we have another boss fight against two servants of King Gaius, Wingle and Pressa. This is the first boss fight where the bosses can actually link with each other and perform link darts. However, when two characters or enemies are linked, they share both positive and negative status effects. So if I can get a burn on one of the bosses while they are linked, the other boss will also get burned. Not only that, but I believe the burn stacks, so instead of so whatever percentage of HP the boss would lose when burned, if they are linked and both link partners are burned, they also take, I think, 25% of the damage the other boss takes from burn, which adds up to a lot of damage. I don't know the exact math, but I know the damage they take increases if you get a double burn. The game actually forces you to stay at this inn to progress the story, so you actually need to have 300 gold at this point to continue the game.
Humans are such tenacious creatures. They can take root and establish civilization in even the harshest of lands.
Also, you'll notice I'm entering and exiting the city, and the reason I'm doing that is to create a warp point for later. The way the map works is that if you've been to an area at all, you can instantly warp to that area regardless of what exit you're going to. So, hold on, let me do this menu. Yes. Alright, to clear up what I was about to say, basically, once you've been inside a room in the game, if you've been to the area connected to that room, even if you haven't necessarily been to that exit, the game will recognize you as having been to the exit as far as the map is concerned, and thus you can actually skip over an entire room and warp right to that exit.
Considering the size of his country, Gaius
So you saw me go into
actually pretty modest.
the Xillian Woods Temple there, and that is so I can skip an entire map later using the map warp. There are a few other times in the run where I'm going to be taking advantage of that to save travel time.
Attack! Attack!
Wingle is pretty fast, so it can be hard to target him with fireballs.
Can't understand a word he's saying, though.
Even with the stun lock abilities I have. Not to mention, with the strategy settings I have, I don't think Milla and Elise are going to target the same character as Rowan. Unless Wingle gets caught into the negative gate with Cressa. Probably not going to be stun locked. Yeah, that's a link dart from the bosses. As I said, they can link up and do link darts. But I managed to avoid it. Cressa's much easier to kill because not only is she a bit slower, but she's also weak to Fireball.
His hair completely changed. And his speech, too.
As mana dramatically increased, there can be only one reason.
A booster. Yes, I won't let...
Okay. So now we have permission to use the wyverns. So we're going to fly out of Jandu and back into Rashagal. This game has two countries. One is Azul, which is the one we're in now, and the other is Rashagal, which is where Fenmont is, the city from the beginning of the game where Milla lost her powers. So we're going to use wyverns to fly back to Fenmont And on the way, we're gonna come across a giant flying creature. However, this flying creature is one of the easiest bosses in the game. In fact, I've actually done this next boss fight blindfolded. Or with my eyes closed, rather. Next boss only has, like, one dangerous attack, and that's one where he, like, lunges into you. But other than that, what he's going to do is kind of spin around, and since Rowan has the feather coat, he's going to absorb any wind elemental damage the boss does. So as long as the boss cooperates, this could be a very easy fight. Yeah, this is what we want. That's the attack that does nothing. Ooh, got the burn. Yeah, that's the, like, one dangerous thing he can do. But he didn't use it at Rowan, so it's all good. Also, another thing I can now do is Rowan has this skill called queued spellcasting, which allows Rowan to essentially store spells. As long as you guard cancel with Rowan before he officially starts casting the spell, when you resume casting, as long as it's the same spell that you canceled, Rowan will pick up from where he left off on the casting time. And if he was basically just about finished, he will, like, instantly cast the spell. This can be useful if an enemy tries to move out of the way during Rowan's casting time, because using semi-auto mode, I can reposition Rowan at the enemy and throw the fireballs. So right now, we're back in Charlton, just talking to our party members, planning our next move. Alvin has to be a jerk and go all the way out into the city, whereas everyone else hangs out at the mansion like they should. Alright, so now we're finally heading back to Fenmont, the city you saw at the beginning of the game. We're finally going to attempt to free the 4 Great Spirits and destroy the Lance of Kresnik. Also, you're about to see what I mentioned earlier about the map warp, because since we've been to Fenmont, and since this next map is connected to Fenmont, I can literally skip over the next map entirely using the map teleport. And so it basically just puts me right at the entrance to Fenmont, because I was already in that particular screen earlier in the game. Now we're going to head back to that lab you saw at the beginning.
Ah, this must be the sensation humans know as hunger.
Here's another example of map warp. I can just warp right into the lab, because I was on the screen at the beginning of the game, and that door right ahead of me is the door to the screen. So before the next boss, I'm going to take a slight detour to buy some more items. Another thing I didn't mention about food is that you can only hold one of a particular food in your inventory at a time. So basically what I'm going to do is buy a spicy chicken roll here, use it, and then buy another. This is another instance where the party just changes. The next boss we have is Agria, who is actually resistant to fire, but still, Fireball is the biggest damage-dealing move we have against her. She's also the first boss that can go into Overlimit and use a Mystic Art, which, when you're in Overlimit, is something you can perform by using a specific Arcane Art on a character, but bosses, your party can do it, although you're not going to be seeing me use it at all in this run, because none of them are as effective as Fireball. And there you see, Agria got the instant Overlimit, and she hit her Arcane Art on Elise. Also, this boss can summon ads or enemies. Ads is a term used in other RPGs when bosses summon enemies, but yeah. Boss can occasionally summon enemies, but we got them all. Another skill that I didn't mention before is we have something called Level Restore, which will fully heal a party member's HP and TP every time they level up. And since we level up from pretty much every boss fight, a party is almost always getting fully healed after major fights, so we never actually need to use ins during the run. However, we do have a few forced fights coming up where we're not going to level up, and thus I am going to have to actually use some items before the next boss.
What's wrong?
Milla, I don't stink, do I?
No, you're totally fine.
Ah! Did I ask you?
No, just keeps.
Fenmont, the city built upon spirit arts. I must say it's quite the spectacle.
Let's do this!
All in a day's work.
There's also a bit of RNG after some of these forced fights, because unlike boss fights where the victory cutscenes you get are fixed, these forced encounters get the same victory cutscenes as normal encounters, which are random depending on what your party is and what characters are linked with each other. So you can sometimes lose time after a fight just because of a long victory cutscene. However, if you've already seen a victory cutscene at some point in the run, if you get that victory cutscene again, you can skip right through it. So what you saw me get was a victory cutscene with Rowan and Elise, since Rowan and Elise are linked.
For an old man.
But since I had gotten that cutscene already, I was able to skip it this time. So, we're going up Orta Palace to fight Noctigal, the king of Rashagal. He can either be a very easy fight or he can be a nasty fight, depending on what he wants to do. He has this attack that can just come up from behind a party member, or come up from under a party member and like just do a lot of damage, possibly even kill them. These enemies also can Iron Stance, by the way, even though they're not bosses. Most regular enemies can't Iron Stance, but these enemies can for some reason. Noctigal can also go into Overlimit, and he can use a Mystic Art if he hits his Arcane Art. However, if he starts casting a spell while in Overlimit and you're spamming spells on him, for some reason it delays his spell and kind of keeps him stunned in his spell animation. Not sure exactly why, but that seems to work most of the time. But that's only if he starts casting a spell while in Overlimit. That enemy didn't want to die.
Age breeds greater experience.
Another thing you've noticed is that I'm now equipping skills that increase stats. Basically, these skills will increase stat by a percentage of your current stat. And if party members are linked, they not only get their own stat skill, but they also get the stat skill of their link partner. They stack. So you can actually stack those stat boosting skills for increased stats when party members are linked. That's one of the reasons why you'll notice that I'm linking Rowan and Elise, even though I'm not actually doing any link darts with anybody. It's because I want them to share their stat boosting skills. To increase the damage they do. And this is what I'm talking about, how you can basically keep him in like a stun lock while he's in overlimit if he attempts to cast something. Nice! Woo, sub 1 minute!
Noctigal, you have lost. I request that you
Really good fight. So now I'm about to pick up another Ifree treasure. This one gives the Impregnable Guard skill, which basically is a perfect guard. If a character has Impregnable Guard equipped and guards, their guard cannot be broken, even if the enemy attacking them is attacking from behind. Another thing about Impregnable Guard is that if you guard an Arcane Art while Impregnable Guard is equipped, a boss cannot perform a Mystic Art, even if they are in overlimit. So if you fully guard an Arcane Art with Impregnable Guard, when a boss is in overlimit, you can prevent them from using their Arcane Art. So I'm going to use that later in the run to try and prevent Mystic Arts from happening by blocking Arcane Arts with Impregnable Guard. Gonna do another map warp here. Even though you never saw me on the screen, technically we were on the screen, the shipboarding area, during a cutscene that I skipped at the beginning of the game. So the game recognizes me as having been on that screen, and thus I can teleport to it to avoid having to cross the bridge again. So now Noctigal is dead. Although not by our hand, some mystery assailant killed him. But in the meantime, the Lance of Kresnik is no longer in Fenmont, and so we're off to Fezabel Marsh to chase down Gaius, who apparently has taken control of the Lance of Kresnik. And coming up, we're going to have 10 consecutive fights against a lot of enemies. However, all 10 of these fights are considered one fight as far as experience is concerned. So, all the experience that I get from these fights is going to be rewarded at the end. And since I have a spicy chicken roll enabled, all that experience is going to be multiplied by 2, since it's all considered one battle as far as the food is concerned. And thus we're going to become pretty overleveled after those fights.
And just like that, we're at war?
Yes. And with tens of thousands of soldiers on either side, it looks to be a massive one.
Also, I bought some holy bottles from that shop, which is going to help me avoid some encounters in linear areas coming up. Although holy bottles aren't that good in this game. They cause the enemies to move rather awkwardly.
Tipo, I know you're concerned.
Look at this giant plant! Wow! You could use that. June, don't splash mud on me!
Sorry about that.
So for this first fight, all the enemies appear at the start. However, for all the subsequent fights, there will only be certain enemies on screen at the start, and then more enemies are going to spawn throughout the fight. This is another sequence where cute spellcasting becomes really useful because very often enemies are going to die before you even finish a single fireball. So, or before you can even finish the casting time of the fireball. So, if you see an enemy is about to get killed, you can cancel the fireball cast, reposition Rowan, and then instantly send the fireball at the next target.
I'll take them down, no matter what. Hey,
Actually gonna go for another Wind Lance here,
fall back and rest. I'm okay.
because I got a good enemy formation. Ooh, those fireballs just barely missed that enemy.
I'm here!
When will this end? So damn close.
Hey, are you okay?
This is enough to take me down.
Alvin, are you sure you're alright?
Would I lie at a time like this?
Well, I don't know.
That part of me is gone.
I'm sure that's a lie.
Gotta be serious sometimes.
Hey, come on, guys. Less talking, more fighting.
We're so close. Are you alright? So this is war. It's nothing but a sucker.
Ah,
Cut down the dreams and lives of our youth. I take no pleasure knowing most of my years were on the battlefield. And despite my efforts, that trouble continues.
Can't give up. We'll find a way to stop all of this.
You're right, of course. Our destination is just up ahead. To victory.
Damn it! Just leave us alone already.
If only battles could be ended by simply asking.
We can always win.
Alright, this is the last fight. And then we're gonna get a lot of EXP.
Leia, don't rush forward lest you be completely surrounded. Things are not looking good, Milla.
It's also one of the shorter ones.
I'm here.
Hang in there. I'm not giving up.
You hear that? None of us will give up.
My stomach seems to be empty again. When do we eat?
Again with this one. Good performance, but terrible fuel efficiency.
Now we got a really nasty fight. It's against Zhao, Wingle, and Pressa. They can link, they can overlimit, they can use mystic arts. This fight can either go really fast or be a complete disaster. Another thing I didn't mention is that Rowan now has an item equipped called the Knight's Crest, which increases the chances of him getting a crit or critical hits. Nice! I think he was about to use a Mystic Art too. The burn just barely killed him. And Pressa is obviously the weakest and easy to kill once the other two are down.
Fortunate. How about an encore?
The reason I'm swapping out some party members is
That's right.
we have
As long as I-
a fight coming up against guys which you can win, but you don't have to, and it's a very difficult fight. So in the speedrun, we're just going to KO our party, and thus I'm taking out a few of my stronger party members for weaker ones to try and KO the party faster. Also, I need to turn auto items off so that characters don't use life bottles. That wasn't too bad. Got them all dead before the dialogue finished. I don't think I even mentioned what auto items are. Basically, they're kind of like gambits in FF12, where you can preset characters to use items under certain conditions and thresholds. Basically, you can set what items AI party members can use, under what conditions they can use them, what they prioritize if multiple conditions are met, and also the limit of how much they can use before they have to, or how much can be in the inventory before they have to stop. It's a very convenient thing because we're casting a lot of spells and using a lot of TP. It's very convenient that party members will just instantly use orange gels when they run out. Alright, what you might have just noticed from that battle is that Milla is now by herself. Because she and Jude have been separated. And this is one of the parts where, depending on whether you picked Jude's story or Milla's story, this part is actually different. If you were playing Jude's story, you would have Alvin and Elise in your party and go into an ice cave and fight aqua dragons. You would not have Rowan in your party, and thus the fight would be pretty difficult. However, on Milla's story, you get Rowan in your party. You get Rowan and Leia. So you have Fireball for the next boss, which, believe it or not, is resistant to fire, but Fireball is still the best method of damage we can use. Still does a ridiculous amount of damage, and even though the boss is resistant to fire, the boss is not resistant to burn. Funny how that works. A fire boss can actually be burned in Tales of Xillia. The boss starts with 2 enemies that are weak to fire, but are pretty fast, and over time can summon more enemies. But usually the fight ends in less than a minute.
Feel the beat
And ride the rhythm.
all the way to victory.
I'm just getting...
So as you notice, I now have a holy bottle, but you can still get encounters when you have a holy bottle on. And if you do get an encounter with a holy bottle, it's actually slower than a normal encounter because it's considered a preemptive. It has a longer load time, and you watch an animation where the enemies take a little bit of damage. Sometimes you literally have to wait for an enemy to move. And sometimes their movement can be kind of finicky.
With a disciplined mind, even flames can feel cool.
So you say. They seem plenty hot to me.
I'm sweating out of like every pore. I feel so disgusting.
Oh, indeed.
Gotta burn.
How could this be? Calm yourself. Leia, please provide support.
You got it. Let's do this.
Oh. Oh, that stinks. It's only 6,000 experience. But we really don't want Milla to miss experience. Because eventually I have to do a boss fight with just Milla. But I hope it doesn't, like, screw things up. So that's another map warp. This is why I went into this room earlier when I was in Cambalar, so I could warp over that map.
All right. Now this is some pretty...
Here's another thing that I didn't mention earlier the first time it happened. When party members leave your party and for extended periods, they return with upgraded equipment. Like they get better weapons and better armor. This is the main reason why I don't ever bother upgrading the armor shop, and only on select occasions do I upgrade the weapon shop. It's because most of my party will just get instant equipment upgrades through the story, or automatic equipment upgrades. Also, now the hardest encounter to avoid in the game all depends on its movement. Yeah. This particular encounter, if they don't move out of your way, it's actually faster to just force the encounter than it is to wait for them, because you have Elise in the party, so you get chicken run. But anyways, as I was saying before, party members will automatically get upgraded equipment. This is another thing that makes Jude's story more difficult, at least for the speedrun, because when you get to Chapter 4 of this game, Milla gets separated, spoiler alert, from the entire party.
Milla, the castle is this
Again.
way.
Well, actually, no, this is the only time she gets separated from the entire party. She got separated from Jude just a moment ago, but eventually she's going to get separated from everyone, and when everyone in the party returns, they all get upgraded equipment. Whereas in Jude's story, I think only Milla and Alvin get equipment upgrades in Chapter 4. And thus, it's another thing that makes Jude's story more difficult. And now we got some forced fights coming up.
A fantastic victory. A fantastic.
Just keeps.
Even though you hear the boss battle music playing, this isn't really much of a boss fight. In fact, the boss music plays in the next forced fight as well, but that's basically the same as the two fights I just fought, except with one extra goon.
If only I could use more arts like you.
You just need to practice a little.
A little?
Yes, only 20, 30 years or so.
I feel
So right now we're just going around talking to people again. We're about to hijack a giant boat called the ESS Zenithra. And on the ESS Zenithra is Gilland, the person who was pulling the strings behind Noctigal's actions, and now he has gained control of the Lance of Kresnik. So we have to go stop him. So we got two more forced fights, both of which are very fast. Just have to win lance them. I think the second fight, if I'm lucky, I can kill him with a single wind lance, even though there are 4 enemies. Not sure if I can do it with this fight. Oh, that was not a very good enemy formation. Or rather, it wasn't even the formation, it was just the RNG from the enemy movement.
My sword rings true.
That last soldier moved out of the way of the wind lance and didn't get caught in the negative gate either.
strongest.
So now we have the ESS Sinithra, also known as the Jazz Ship. This is probably the hardest dungeon to learn in the speedrun, as far as navigation goes. However, there's a little trick that we learn in the speedrun community, and that is, after the elevator screens, just go left. So here we got an elevator. Or they're not elevators, they're teleporters. I don't know why I'm calling them elevators. They look nothing like elevators, they're teleporters. But basically, after teleporter screens like that one, I just go left. And that's the way to go. I mean, you have to know in what directions to turn. Although you'll figure it out once you find that there's a dead end. But yeah. Move left is the key to this area. Also, I'm picking up materials again because since Milla gets separated from the whole party after the next boss, the rest of the party will get equipment upgrades, but Milla will not, so I'm actually going to need to upgrade the weapon shop some more to give Milla a better weapon for the late game. So basically, we're deactivating these security switches, I think, that are the security behind an electric fence that we need to get through to get to where Gilland is. Sorry, my vocabulary is off today. I'm going to take a slight detour here to get this chest with some really good materials. This area also has this gimmick where you'll notice there are no enemies on screen, but once you hear an alert from one of the guards on the ship, it means that the next time you enter a screen, there will be enemies, and that's when I need to use a holy bottle. Because this is a very linear area. It's very hard to avoid encounters here. But until I get the alert, I don't have to use the holy bottle, which is good because holy bottles only last for a limited amount of time. Nice, I got all the way to the second reactor. Yeah, barrier bars, that's what they're called. Thanks, Jude.
The barrier bars should be gone now.
So we've disabled the barrier bars now.
The enemy has infiltrated the port sector. We need to reinforce the port side defenses. Port sector, roger that. We're sending additional troops your way.
Alright, so up till now I've been using Negative Gate with Elise, which was good for stun lock and drawing in enemies together. But now I've got an even better ability for her called Dread Wings, which can actually do some really good damage, assuming it hits.
More? How big is this stupid boat?
Now we're coming up on what can be a very dangerous fight, and that is Gilland and the spirit Celsius. Gilland and Celsius, they can link together and they can perform a very dangerous linked art. Also, Gilland has some really nasty attacks, one of which is like this big, like, laser beam or gun beam that can just be used across the entire field and just destroy characters. And Celsius is pretty fast. Even though Celsius is weak to fire, we actually want to take out Gilland first, just because of how dangerous he is. But now we've got this new skill that's going to help us, called skills rather, called HP and TP Surge. Oh, he just over-limited, or, yeah. So these bosses can over-limit, and although they can't use Mystic Arts, I think if they're both in over-limit at the same time, they can perform that very dangerous linked art. But I managed to get a stun on him. So you'll notice that Rowan died and got revived with full HP and TP. That's what HP and TP Surge do. Alright. We're back up. Alright, we got one down. Alright, we made it through.
A power matching that of the Great Spirits.
The power of Spyrite.
Doesn't matter. Gillen's ambitions end here.
So now we're coming up on Chapter 4. And the main reason why Milla's story is faster than Jude's story. So what happened in the story is Milla got all got the 4 Great Spirits, got her powers back, but then she decided to sacrifice herself to save everyone after Muse, a spirit that has been accompanying Jude since we were separated earlier, tried to kill the entire party. So basically, now Jude and the rest of the party are, well, they think Milla's dead, and she is, but what they've also found out is that Milla is not actually Maxwell, the Lord of Spirits. She's just a fake Maxwell, a decoy, and there is actually a real Maxwell that created her to lure out his enemies like Exodus, so that the real Maxwell wouldn't be found. And the reason Muse tried to kill everyone is because she didn't want anyone finding out about Maxwell and about the schism, which is what separates the 2 worlds of Tales of Xillia, Rize Maxia and Olympius. Oh, what troll movement. Did you hear Milla's voice? Time to retreat! So basically, Milla is dead. However, the four great spirits have brought her to the spirit realm and are going to try and revive her as a spirit, because apparently the four great spirits are fed up with Maxwell sacrificing one world, Olympius, to protect another world, Riza Maxia, and they're also fed up with Maxwell using decoys like Milla to prevent organizations like Exodus from finding him, because he's basically sacrificing his decoys to keep himself secret. So the spirits betrayed Maxwell and have brought Milla to the spirit realm, and so that's why Milla looks like she's naked right now, and why everything basically looks like a palette swap of an area we were at earlier in the game. Because we are basically in the same world we were in for the entire game, except now in spirit form. So, basically, I'm just running around, gathering materials, well, basically the game doesn't tell you what you need to do. The game just tells you to go wherever you want. And of course, Milla, now she's a spirit, so she has no memories. She doesn't even remember who she is. The four great spirits are basically guiding her around everywhere, and they're going to try and restore her memories. But basically what I have to do is I have to walk all the way back to Hamil, and the game wants you then to walk all the way back to Niakara. However, you may have noticed I went to Niakara first and exited, and that was to create another map warp, to avoid having to walk all the way through the Kajara Sea Falls again. So, I mentioned this earlier, but Milla has a 1v1 fight against a boss, and that boss is Muse. It's one of the biggest run killers in the entire Xillia speedrun. She has what I like to call a death combo, where she will knock you down and then use something called Sharpen Width, which can basically take you from full HP to 0. Now, most runners don't do this, but I actually picked up a chest in the boat, which has a reverse doll. It's a pretty good item. It will, one time only, revive a party member in battle if they get knocked out, which is pretty convenient for this next boss, since I don't have any other party members, and thus no one could use a life bottle on Milla if she was KO'd. If she got KO'd, it would be game over. But since I have the reverse doll, it will revive her if she gets KO'd. Not only that, but since I'll have HP and hopefully TP Surge equipped, I'm not sure if she'll still have it because she missed experience on a fight, but if she has both HP and TP Surge equipped when getting revived by the reverse doll, she will be revived with full HP and full TP. I also have an elixir that I can use, and I'm also going to be stocking up on lemon and pineapple gels. But the main reason I'm picking up all these materials now is to upgrade the weapon shop and give Milla a better weapon, because otherwise she's going to have to finish the game with a weapon she got before the first boss. And Milla, since Milla has now gotten the four great spirits back, she can now use Undine, which is that move you saw me using to destroy the first few fights of the game. And it does pretty good damage. But to boost the damage it does, I need a better weapon for Milla, because weapons in this game boost both physical attack and art attack.
If you're in that much of a hurry, Sylph, feel free to go ahead without us.
So even for magic casters, you want to improve their weapons, because it will increase the damage they do with magic. Another thing Yuze can do is she can overlimit. Yes, In a 1v1 fight, the boss can overlimit. She can use an arcane art and a mystic art. Her mystic art, her mystic art always reduces all party members it hits to 1 HP, and sometimes can inflict status effects, I think. So if you get burn after the mystic art, you're dead because the burn tick will instantly kill you. And also, another thing she can do is she can cast this really nasty fire art, which you're going to see which a lot of late game bosses can use, and that is Sunburst, which is literally unavoidable. It goes into the air and covers the entire field with fire waves, and if you are not magic guarding, you will get hit, and you will probably get burned, and probably die. It's a very nasty move. The boss I fight after Muse actually likes to use it a lot. It's like the one move you absolutely have to magic guard. And not only that, but what Muse can do after using Sunburst is she can cast the Sunburst into the air, and then she can actually move while the Sunburst is happening, so she can literally catch up to you and use a death combo and kill you. And you wouldn't be able to block it without getting hit by the Sunburst. Yes. And what's worse is that Milla actually missed experience on a boss. It wasn't a heavy experience boss fight, but she's probably at least one level lower than normal. So I don't know how that's going to affect her skills. May have to improvise a bit. But we're going to kill Yuze using Undine and hopefully another ability called Radiant Rondo. So, okay, so... Whoops. That would have been a big oof. Ooh, nice, 47. Alright, that'll work. I do like to have some orange gels for later, but I needed to make sure I had life bottles. Alright. Actually, alright, so... Alright, she has it. Alright, and, Alright, here I go. This is that death combo. Oh, actually, sometimes she can do that. She usually follows it up. There it is. Ouch. She really caught me off guard there.
End of the road for you. Farewell.
Dang it.
Enough! Gales of the mighty called through the wicked. Sharpened whip! I'll rip you apart. Forces of nature pierce through the heavens. Diffusional drive!
Oh,
Nature pierce through the heavens. Diffusional drive!
comboed me.
I won't accept any apology. Sharpened roots!
Here it is, Sunburst.
Light at the horizon. Sunburst!
Well, I'm probably dead now.
I'll rip you apart.
I'm not having any luck with this boss.
Elemental
Problem is I'm losing my reverse style too early, and then she's over-limiting.
I won't accept any apology. Sharpened whip! Goodbye! Spire I won't accept any apologies.
I feel like I'm under-damaging her because she's under-leveled. Oh, please stop over-limiting.
I'll rip you apart.
At least I can guard that.
Elemental hand! Forces of nature pierce through the heavens.
Yeah, she doesn't have as much HP as she normally does because she missed experience on that boss. That's the main reason I've been dying to her. I saw that coming. She starts using that stun move when she loses half her HP, so a bit easier to avoid getting killed at that point. Because that stun blitz move can only hit from short range. We're finally through. That fight took over 2 minutes. Died 3 times, and it took over 2 minutes to not die. Yeah. It really stinks when Milla misses experience on anything. I'm just gonna wait for this enemy to despawn. If you have a holy bottle and the enemy is like running away from you and we wait long enough, eventually it'll just despawn. I just didn't want to get an encounter because I don't have back support or chicken run since Elise is not in the party. But as you can see, enemies can have very weird movement when you have a holy bottle. They really nerfed it from earlier Tales games. Like, you can now get encounters with enemies with the holy bottle. And sometimes enemies will just move really stupidly. But now we're about to get all our party members back because the 4 great spirits are going to revive Milla into the real world as a spirit. And we're all going to confront Maxwell over having used Milla as bait.
At the summit.
Alright, Maxwell is an interesting boss in that he can actually change his elemental resistance and elemental weakness mid-fight. I think he always starts resistant to fire. So he'll always start resistant, or I don't know if he always starts. Yeah, I think he starts resistant to fire and weak to water. Milla is now using Undine instead of Splash, which will do a lot of damage when he's weak to water. Oh, now Maxwell's gone into overlimit. Yeah, I was trying to switch to Milla and guard it, but didn't work. I think Milla was just stuck in a spell animation. This is a really nasty Mystic Art. Yeah, so you may have heard him say elemental change. That means he just changed his element. Now he's weak to fire and resistant to water. Even with that Mystic Art, it was still not such a bad fight.
I heard a voice. It called out to me and said, Milla.
It's really you.
That's not
All right.
So we defeated Maxwell, and now what's happened is Muse, who we defeated before Maxwell, has joined forces with Gaius, and they are now on a mission to destroy every Spyrix in Olympias in order to save Riza Maxia.
I'm quite impressed.
Well, that's what Gaius's mission is. Muse just wants to do whatever Gaius tells her to do because apparently she can't think for herself.
You were pretty strong.
She needs to have a mission.
This city
So
need a
we've been
starting point.
teleported to Olympias by Maxwell, and
Welcome, visitors from.
what we're noticing is that Olympias is much more technologically advanced than Riza Maxia, in major part because of its use of Spyrix, which up to now we have hated. We have been on a mission to destroy all the Spyrixes because of what they do to spirits.
Thank you. I suppose it takes a gentleman
However, what we're
to
learning is
spend
that the
years
people of
to
Olympias
understand it
pretty
is
much need Spyrixes in order to survive. And so we're kind of feeling remorseful for them, because what's going to save our world is going to destroy theirs. But apparently, Alvin has a cousin who has been working on a project called Spyrites, which are basically Spyrixes that don't kill spirits. The idea is that these Spyrites will save the people of Olympias, but not kill the spirits of Riza Maxia. And they've been working on this because through Olympias' use of Spyrixes
This lamp is
over
casting rays without
like 1,000 years, I think.
Perhaps
Not sure how long, but for years and due to years and years of Spyrix use, they've basically depleted all their spirits, which is why Exodus was trying to obtain the lands of Kresnik. They wanted to capture the spirits of Riza Maxia and use them to save Olympias. So now we're off to Helgeborg to learn more about these Spyrites.
what a dreary landscape.
So here you can see, like, this is basically the world map of Olympias, and it's like basically a dying planet. I don't really need to develop Leia's orb anymore because she's not doing any damage, and we got all the skills we need for her. So I'm just developing the other characters so that their damage increases. A lot of the late game bosses can just one-shot you no matter what your
Be so bold.
HP is, so
Piece of seaweed and a water
developing Leia just for the sake of having more HP, not really worth it. And she has plenty of TP to work with, since she's still using sharpness, which doesn't cost much.
I can't believe the size of this facility. Everything in Olympias is so grandiose.
It's like a city in and of itself.
Whoa! Oh, almost didn't see that enemy. So we got another boss coming up. This next boss is actually very easy. He can overlimit. However, he can't use any Mystic Arts. And he can't use any Linked Arts since he doesn't have a partner. So I think it just powers him up. In fact, when he overlimits, he literally says power up.
Get off me. You can't.
I've also used a new food item called Fruit Yakisoba because I don't really need the extra experience anymore, and Fruit Yakisoba will actually increase the damage my party members do. This boss is weak to water, which means Undine does a lot, and obviously Fireball will do a lot. He's not resistant. Well, actually, no, he is resistant to fire. But like I said earlier, even bosses that are resistant to fire take a lot of damage from Fireball. This is like the only annoying thing he can do is he can kind of bounce up and down, make it hard to target him, and he can inflict burn. Oh, he summoned something. One of the worst Volt fights I've ever had.
Okay, we finally stopped it.
Everyone all right?
Yes, somehow.
All the electric shocks may have helped my blood circulation.
Not just keeps.
So now that we've learned about Spyrites, we're now going to confront Gaius and Muse and fight them over how to save Riza Maxia. They want to just kill all the Spyrexes in Olympias. We want to save the Spyrexes or until Spyrite become available to use so that Olympias doesn't die.
Forest anytime soon.
And so now we're coming up on what is the final dungeon of the game. But to find Gaius and Muse, we need to go to the Temporal Crossroads. And apparently, we're going to... There's this hill with an entrance to the crossroads. So we got a bit of downtime until the next boss. some movement and cutscene skips. Not much downtime. Also, I can use Map Warp to just go back to Triglyph, I think is the name of the town. And then come back here because there are some cutscenes in Triglyph before we can go to the final dungeon.
I don't understand. The spirit fossil came off. How is she able to...
Ta-da! Look! Look, everyone, look!
Alright, I'm gonna pick up an Omega Elixir here. Omega Elixirs are basically elixirs that can be used on the entire party. Ugh. Can I get around them? Okay.
But that's okay. We're used to it.
And what they will do is they'll revive any dead party members and fully heal any living party members. And now we gotta fight against Wingull, which for the most part is easier than... Oh, wow, he overlimited instantly!
I don't know your language, but I do understand.
That's why I'm not attacking with Rowan right now. Okay. He's out of overlimit now. I didn't want him using his arcane art. Wingull's mystic art is a guaranteed KO on whoever it targets. And if he kills a party member with his arcane art, he'll then use his mystic art to kill another party member. There's also this rare chance that he can use Sunburst in this fight only. But for the most part, this is an easier fight than the others because he's by himself. And he got another overlimit. Oh, I got the stun. Nice! Man, Rowan having a Wind Absorb is really nice. He was able to absorb that entire cyclone.
I wish we had met under different circumstances.
Rowan.
So now, we officially enter the final dungeon, where, regardless of whether you're playing as Jude or Milla, you get separated from the entire party. So now we have just Milla. Now, depending on whether or not you are doing Jude's story or Milla's story, the next boss is different. If you're playing Jude's story, you fight Gaius, who has no elemental weaknesses, and a pretty nasty Mystic Art just overall does a lot of damage. But on Milla's story, you fight Muse, who is actually weak to light. For this next boss, you have to fight with just Jude and Milla. And Jude and Milla actually have a few light elemental link darts, which will do pretty good damage to Muse. Unfortunately, I have a full overlimit gauge, which is not ideal. Normally, I like to go in with like an empty overlimit gauge. So that I can fill it up for the final boss. But I'm just gonna have to work with it. And so now I have to basically re-orb Jude completely. Like, basically, he hasn't been orbed. Oh, wow. Did she get a level from that? That's probably because she missed experience on that boss. Normally I have to restore her TP. See how much GP Jude has? I literally have to, like, develop so much of his orb now just for 2 bosses. Alright, so while Muse 2 isn't quite as bad as Muse 1, she can still be a pain. So we're going to try and get her down with link darts.
Just step aside for us.
Of course not. Why should I follow any of your requests?
Very well then.
Right here with you.
I don't understand. Why are you always treated differently? Why is it always you?
Alright. That fight went well primarily because I had overlimit and was able to chain those 6 link darts. But that's going to become a problem for the final boss. So this final boss works on a timer. It's Gaius and Muse. You start the fight with Jude and Milla, and then as the battle goes on, your other party members will join the fight.
And it's all over.
True.
The order in which they join depends on how much time they've spent linked with the protagonist. So, if I've done everything correctly, the order I should get the party members is Rowan, Elise, Leia, and Alvin. Ideally, you want to kill Muse with just Jude and Milla, and then use Rowan to take out Gaius once you have your other party members. But it might be harder now because I don't have a full overlimit gauge.
If you've come this far, there's no need to hold back any longer. Use it.
Yes, I shall be the blade that leads you to victory.
So first we got Rowan. Also, cool thing about this fight is every time a party member joins, they use their Mystic Art. So even though you never actually see me use Mystic Arts myself, you do get to see 4 of them automatically. That's actually was really good. Nice.
I am no different from everyone else here.
So be it. Your age won't matter when I strike you down.
I plan to see the future. I hate to break expectation again, but I will not lose.
We got Muse down quickly. Alright, so now I'm just going to focus on Gaius with the normal strategy
Do this!
of spamming spells.
Lock on target! Charge complete! Fire! It's gonna hurt!
Alright.
Made it! Hey, you guys still alive? We were waiting for you,
Ideally, we want to skip Alvin's entrance completely and beat him before he even shows up. If you're really lucky, you can also skip Leia. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Alright, we didn't skip oh wow, I got Alvin? It's weird. Pretty certain I linked Milla and Leia. Whatever, he's almost dead. Alright, coming up on time here.
Hey, did I keep you waiting?
Oh, he got over limit. Alright, I'm gonna use an Omega Elixir.
I know this is where I belong, and I'm not ready to part with it yet.
If I had gotten Leia in first, we would have killed him before Alvin showed up. Leia killed it. Alright, coming up on time. Just about, like, a few seconds.
Still not enough.
Is it over?
Time.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Victory's ours.
We did it!
Milla!
Yes, it's finally over.
Alright, well anyways, thank you all for having me. Sorry this run didn't go better. But sometimes the RNG just doesn't fall in your favor. To be fair, the 2 fights I struggle with the most are 2 of the worst fights in the whole run. And the other fight I died to, just kind of bad luck, because one party member got killed too many times.
Even if we unite the 2 worlds, it is pure
But anyways,
that they will cooperate with one
thank you all for having me. Thank you to NASA for letting me run this. If you enjoyed watching my run of Tales of Xillia, please give me a follow. My name is TranceQuina. I speedrun a lot of RPGs, including Final Fantasy IX and this, and I'm currently learning another. So I will be doing more RPG speedruns in the future. I'll also be running FF9 for a relay on the RPG Limit Break channel in about a month.
I will get stronger. I want
But yeah,
you to believe in me.
I do enjoy doing this run.
Strive to become stronger. They constantly struggle to grow more for the sake of others. They rise to the occasion. This fills me with hope.
Even when the game just throws a lot at me,
I cherish
I fight the struggle.
I know you understand this, Gaius.
I do not. When all of these possibilities of yours evaporate, I will then be forced to rise again.
You won't have to do anything.
Music. If living alone is too painful for you, then come join us.
Thank you.
I see that you have made up your mind.
Yes.
Milla. What are you talking about?
I have decided to become Maxwell.
So that was your plan.
Now, if you so desire, Milla, you may use the schism's mana to become human again. I see. Keep watch over the spirits.
Wait!
Jude, I'm afraid this is farewell. Our fates were always intertwined in mysterious ways. Thank you for everything.
Hold on! I'm sorry for all the times I was weak. But now, I think I'm going to be just fine.